Welcome to Mr. Mutlow's Topic in 10 Minutes for O.C.R. A.2 Physical Education. This video is particularly concerned with the case study activity of swimming and bathing. As with each of the case study activities, we will look at the development of swimming and bathing from its early origins as a popular recreation through to its popularity as a pastime today. In order to understand the initial origins of this activity, we need to understand the importance of lakes and rivers to early settlements. In the Middle Ages in particular, all towns and villages were built on the banks of rivers or lakes or other natural waterways, as these provided a source not only of cleanliness, but also of fish, washing equipment, and transport. Indeed, man's relationship with water spans back to the beginning of time, and it is this that is our first indication of what swimming was like as a popular recreation. Given the importance of rivers and waterways to everyday life in the pre-industrial world that was Britain, swimming or bathing, or indeed the ability to be comfortable in the water, was an important prerequisite for every person, regardless of class. The lower classes needed the water to wash, to fish, and to travel, whilst swimming was considered an important part of the chivalric code by the upper classes. In simple terms, swimming was considered one of the 5 key skills of a gentleman for the gentry. Given the importance of swimming to both classes in pre-industrial Britain, it is hardly surprising that all people learnt to swim from an early age. As a result, swimming as a popular recreation was largely that, a recreational activity which served other purposes, such as catching food or washing clothes. Formal competitive swimming barely existed in this time, although there were occasional wager races, but largely it was a functional activity and a part of everyday life. How then did this informal activity become the organised and competitive event which we know today? The answer to that question lies not only in its role in public schools, but more importantly in its development as a rational post-industrial recreation. We already know that swimming as an activity in pre-industrial Britain was largely recreational and used for the purposes of achieving other goals such as washing. In public schools, though, its status began to develop and evolve, and more formal swimming became evident. During stage 1 of public schools, swimming remained solely a recreational activity, which the boys did for hygiene reasons and for fun or entertainment. It was largely constricted to the summer months and was something which boys engaged in a very informal fashion. In that sense, it was very reflective of how swimming was as a popular recreation. By stage 2, swimming was not only regarded as an important and necessary hygienic activity, but its status also increased as many people thought there were therapeutic benefits to it, and therefore boys should engage in it on a regular basis. Equally, swimming was seen as a good means of social control, something Thomas Arnold championed heavily at rugby school. When swimming, the boys were not trespassing, up to no good, or committing other crimes or offences. During stage 2, public schools also started to formalise their facilities. Money was put in to make natural facilities like lakes or rivers impressive-looking facilities for prospective parents. This included cleaning many up and cordoning off specific areas of natural facilities for swimming purposes. Put simply, stage 2 saw a formalising process occur with swimming, where its importance was more widely recognised and more appropriate facilities were put in place. This formalisation process continued into stage 3. By this stage, many schools were adding bathing huts teachers, diving boards, and other purpose-built facilities to their swimming areas. This stage also saw the advent of some house competitions and some other competitive forms of swimming. That said, as swimming did not develop the values of muscular Christianity, as well as cricket or rugby, for example, its status was still below those sports, and it was still largely seen as a necessary recreation rather than a competitive activity. It is in the post-industrial world where we find swimming increasing in competitiveness and becoming the activity we know today. Swimming as a rational recreation saw massive development and progression. This can be charted in three main areas, with the development of public urban baths being the most significant. The first of these relates to Victorian sea bathing and the gentry's involvement in swimming and bathing. With the development of trains and other transport links, the gentry could now afford to holiday at seaside resorts. A part of this involved using seawater, which was seen as therapeutic and beneficial to health, as part of their bathing process. Therefore, rational recreation saw the development of Victorian sea bathing for the upper class and holidaying at the coast. With the upper class going to the coast for sea bathing, what of the middle class, a newly emerging group in society post the Industrial Revolution? Middle class development saw the increasing development of Regency spa towns such as Bath or Cheltenham. These resorts became places for the middle class to visit, and many schools sprung up in these areas as a result. Society still considered water to be beneficial and therapeutic, and the middle classes wished to demonstrate their wealth by going and visiting these spa towns. Many of these venues still remain popular today, and people will visit them to look at the spas. With the upper class now going to the sea, and the middle class going to spa towns, the working class were left without any facilities in which to swim. It is for that reason that public urban baths developed and that competitive swimming was able to begin. In order to understand this better, we have to first understand the process of urbanisation that occurred as a result of the Industrial Revolution. You will already know from the video on the Industrial Revolution that one of its key impacts was urban migration, with poor people moving from their agricultural village lifestyle to towns and cities in order to find jobs in the new industrialised factories springing up all over Britain. Whilst these factories created more jobs, they also brought with them a number of social problems, including overcrowding and pollution. This overcrowding and pollution had the knock-on effect of making the rivers and lakes in industrial towns impossible to swim in. Not only were there too many people trying to access them, but the waste products produced by the industrial factories caused danger and health risks for those who were. This left a problem for the lower class, and unsurprisingly, a number of cholera outbreaks occurred, killing thousands of people who were swimming and using the water from these polluted industrial rivers. These cholera outbreaks prompted government action, and the first Public Health Act was produced in 1848. This sought to reduce the spread of disease and therefore reduce the amount of days lost to workers through absenteeism. It was believed by industrialists that a healthy workforce was a more productive workforce, and they therefore had a vested interest in trying to stop cholera outbreaks. Given this vested interest, government loans were introduced to allow local councils to build wash houses for the lower class. These councils would then encourage their lower class citizens to go to the wash house, keep clean, and therefore stay healthy. This Wash House Act was a resounding success, and the numbers of councils taking up the government's offers increased. Consequently, the number of swimming pools available increased, and access for the lower class became much simpler. This did not lead to the development of competitive swimming, however, as these baths themselves created a two-tier system. Those who could afford it would pay to use the plunge pools and immerse themselves in water. However, the poorer members of the community went to a penny bath, where they simply gave in a penny in return for an opportunity to wash their clothes in water. That said, absenteeism was reduced, health was improved, and the Wash House Act was more widely rolled out across the country. What is clear is that the cholera outbreak, whilst disastrous for many, caused a sea change in the way that public health was dealt with. It led to the development of public urban baths, and this in turn led to the development of competitive swimming. Given that swimming baths were now established, groups of influential people would meet at them in order to practice and improve their swimming, to get clean and to socialise. This led to the development of the first swimming clubs. Due to the newfound prevalence of swimming baths, as a result of the government loans programme, one swimming club could compete against another in a competitive race. From here, competitive swimming spiralled, and the Amateur Swimming Association was established in 1884. By 1900, over 500 swimming clubs were registered. Despite an initial exclusivity clause preventing the lower class from participating in these clubs, this was soon removed, and in 1880, widespread access to swimming clubs was available to those who sought it. Thus, almost by accident, swimming became a competitive activity. For the purposes of the examination, it's important that you can chart the story of swimming, from its origins as a purely recreational activity in pre-industrial Britain, through to public schools, where whilst it remained a recreation, a slight civilising process occurred, and finally into rational recreation, where upper-class sea bathing and middle-class Regency and spa movements, coupled with a response to a cholera outbreak which led to the development of public urban baths. Ultimately, it was this final development which allowed swimming as a competitive activity to develop. It is also important for the examination that you can refer to some factors which affect swimming today. These may include the prevalence of facility, access to such facilities, support from parents, the cost implications of swimming, and many more. This is an area where you may wish to conduct further research. That concludes the topic in 10 minutes for the case study activity of swimming and bathing.